What's up everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's Olivia here, and in today's video we're going to be doing a behind the beat. I'm going to be showing you how to make a contemporary R&B track. So think of something produced kind of like Brian Michael Cox, Dark Child, in that kind of vein. So no trap drums. You can maybe hear her on this, or even like Trey Songz's last album if you listen to that back home. So let's just jump right into it and we're going to break it down.
Young and driven.
Alright, so here we are in FL Studio, and this is the track here. I'll play it in a little bit so you can kind of hear what it sounds like. But it may look like a lot, but I want you to know the track is real simple. There's a lot of layering happening, and then another thing that I personally like to do is I like to separate each instrument and each sound, put it on its own track. So I have my kick, hi-hat, snare all separated instead of just having it on the drum track, just making one drum track. So that's why it looks like a lot. And then the rest is, like I said, a bunch of layering, and then some transitional effects. So that's just something to keep in mind. Even though it looks like a crazy amount, it's real simple. So let's play a little bit of the track so you can hear what it sounds like, and then we'll break it down. Alright, so that was a little bit of the track. So let's start off with the first thing I started off with in this track. And so for the basis of this track, I actually started out with this little guitar, and I'll play that for you guys again. So a real simple chord progression that I have playing on an acoustic guitar. In that loop, I played myself on my MIDI keyboard. So you can see here, this is the chord progression that I use. So real simple. I think I'm in the key of G minor. So real simple chord progression. I have a few notes being strummed to kind of make it sound like more of a realistic guitar, and then a few notes are being played in between. But the sound that I'm actually using for this guitar, I actually got out of the Brian Michael Cox VST. So he actually has his own VSTs. It's called Trophies, and it's a really good program if you produce R&B, or if you want to produce R&B, because it's kind of tailored and modeled after real sounds that he's used in his R&B songs. So he's produced for Trey Songz, Mariah Carey, Usher. The list of people that he's produced for goes on and on. So I really recommend this plugin if you want, realistic sounds that are tailored for R&B. It's a really great plugin. And one thing that I just learned about it is that there's actually MIDI in here that you can use and kind of play around and copy to even other VSTs. So if you want to use the same kind of chord progressions or similar chord progressions that he's used in hit songs, this is a great plugin for that. So there's like Usher, You Got It Bad. There's a chord progression for that. Chris Brown, Say Goodbye. These are hit top R&B songs. So you're basically getting the cheat code to, making hit R&B, if that's something that you're into. So I definitely recommend this program, or this VST. It's called Trophies. Once again, it's by Studio Link, and it's really good. But anyway, after I got the guitar set, I then basically layered that guitar with this piano sound, and I'll play that piano by itself so you can hear it. And that is basically the same chords that the guitar is playing, but instead of being strummed, they're just being sustained. And I'll show you that sound that I'm using for that piano. Alright, so for that piano, I'm actually using Omnisphere. And Omnisphere is another great plugin that I like to use. I probably say I use Omnisphere in 90% of the beats that I produce. So if I'm doing R&B, rap, pop, Omnisphere pretty much has any type of sound that you're looking for. So if you don't already have Omnisphere, I highly recommend it. There's so many sounds. What I really like about it is the categories, how they list that. And then I also like to use the little rating feature. So I'll rate the sounds that I like. And when I open it up, I'll just go to sort by rating. And all my favorite sounds are at the top. That way I don't have to spend a bunch of time browsing through the sounds I like. I can kind of just start with ones I like and then go from there. So anyway, after I got the guitar, I layered it with this Aqua Motion piano, and I did that to kind of, spice up the track and give it a little movement. I thought the guitar loop was really good once I laid those chords down, but I didn't want the track to kind of get static and get boring. So that's why I layered it with this piano, just to, like I said, give the track a little more excitement. And that's one thing you really want to do when you're producing R&B or really any type of music, but especially when you're gonna have a singer on top of it. You want to keep the track simple so the singer can add their own, different melodies and harmonies and things like that. But you do want to keep it exciting enough that they're interested in, creative enough to think of melodies and harmonies. So you want to really walk that line of making sure the track is simple and open enough, but yet has enough excitement and enough changes happening into it to give the listener and both the artist something different. So anyway, after I did that, I then layered this track with the bass, and I'll play that bass for you. And it's real simple. It's just an 808 that I basically have following the chord progression. So it's just playing the first note of each chord that I have playing, and that underneath everything else I thought sounded really good. And that's pretty much my intro there. So my first 8 bars is my intro. So another thing that's really important when it comes to R&B is your arrangement. So how long's your intro, your verse, is there an A and B section? Do you have a bridge or an outro? And we'll get to all of that later in the track. But right now, this is the intro here. So that's pretty much my intro. The only other thing that I added to the intro was this little sound effect that I got out of Arcade. I'll play that separately for you. And that's kind of just playing tucked in the background, just to once again give the track a little excitement, just some ear candy for the listener to kind of grab onto as the track is playing. And it's a nice build up before the drums and everything come in. And then after that, I have this little wall guitar come in as well as on the second part of the intro. I'll play that separately as well. And that's playing the same chords as my piano. Just once again, just some extra layering to kind of thicken up the track before it drops into the verse. Alright, so now I'm going to play it and let it play into the verse, and you can hear what that sounds like again. Alright, so that was some of the verse there, and as you can hear the drums come in. So as you can hear, the drum progression is pretty simple. You have the kick and the snare hitting, pretty much standard, but the sound selection, I would say, is what makes it stand out. So instead of having like a trap snare, I have this nice snare here that you would hear in more of like a contemporary style R&B. The hi-hat is more of a shaker instead of like a typical hi-hat. So I'll show you that. And it's basically a two-step pattern, just having the velocities be altered a little bit to give the track a little bounce and a little rhythm. And then we have a nice little percussion loop coming in every 8 bars, just to give the track a little excitement. So it's just a tambourine with a tom and a triangle. And that, like I said, that's coming in every 8 bars, just so the drum progression doesn't get boring and too typical. And so another thing I like to do with my verses, especially when I'm doing R&B, but really any track I'm producing, is I like to have an A and a B section when it comes to my verses. So I'll have the first 8 bars a certain way, and then the second 8 bars I'll either introduce a new instrument, a new melody, something like that, just to kind of build excitement and have the track, like I said, not become too stagnant and too predictable. So for this song, this later half of the verse, the B section, I would say, what I added was this synth sound, or it's basically these string sounds, so I'll play those for you. And I felt that was a nice build up from the rest of the track, so I'll play everything again into those strings and you can kind of hear how it sounds. Alright, and then another thing that I added when, in the B section was this ARP, so I'll play that separately. And once again, that's playing the same chords that I've been playing the whole song, in the same chords as those strings. They're both an octave higher than everything else that's being played. And as you heard, that ARP just adds a little more movement to the track, as well as kind of thickens it up and fullens the track. And this is the last 8 bars of the verse that's going to lead into the hook. So you want it to sound a little bigger and a bigger transition before we drop into that hook. So that's why I'm adding extra pieces. And then the only other thing that I did before we transition into the hook was I changed the drums. So I'll play that drum switch up for you. Alright, so as you heard, the drums got a little simpler. I basically took out the kick and had the tom and the snare playing. Alright, and so once again, the drums switched up because the hook is about to come back in, and the hook drums are the exact same drum progression as the verse. And so for there to be a noticeable difference between transitioning from the verse to the hook, one change that I decided to do, besides adding those other instruments, was change up the drums. And so sonically, for the listener, that just lets them know that a change is about to happen, and they're a little more excited when the hook actually comes in, because there was that change in the drums and as well as the other instruments. So now let's play the actual hook and you can hear what that sounds like. So for the hook, it's pretty simple. I have the guitar and pretty much everything else playing. As the lead, I have this harp coming in, and I'll play that solo so you can kind of hear what it sounds like. So a pretty simple melody that I'm playing on a harp, and once again I'm using a sound from the Trophies plugin by Brian Michael Cox, so I definitely recommend it. It's the Angelic Harp preset, and it's a nice little top line melody that either a singer can sing on top of if they want to kind of follow that progression, or it can be tucked in the background and used as kind of like a backing melody to whatever melody the singer decides to come up with. So when you're making melodies for R&B, that's something to keep in mind. Is this going to be like a top line melody that you want the singer to follow, or something more in the background? In this case, I feel like it's something that can be either or. I can turn it down a little bit and have it just play in the background, or like I said, it can be more of a top line lead melody. And so that's pretty much the hook, and then it goes back into the second verse. And the second verse is pretty much similar to the first one. The only thing I did when it comes to arrangement is that I took out a few sounds in the beginning, changed up a few of the transitional sounds that are happening throughout. But it's pretty much the same. So now it's just about arrangement. I do recommend when you're arranging your songs and you have your first, second, or third verse, that each one is a little bit different, whether that be adding, either introducing new sounds, or an easy thing to do is take out sounds, knowing when to add certain effects, whether it be low passing certain things, adding little transitional effects, things like that. Those little arrangement things are going to make your track stand out, and once again make it sound more interesting to both the listener and the singer. So arrangement is very important, and I would say at least 50% when it comes to producing. So your sound selection is very important, arrangement. But that's pretty much the song. After it goes into the second verse, it goes back into another hook. And the only other thing that I did with this track that I'll show you guys is, instead of adding a bridge, I added a different outro progression. So I'll go ahead and play that outro now for you guys. So a real simple outro progression. I basically have the ARP that I was playing in my B section of my verse with the bass, and then this electric piano, and this is out of Dimension Pro. It's just the Rhodes V Hard preset, and I'll show you the electric piano. So this is what's being played, and I know it looks like a lot. Like I said earlier, I'm not a pianist, so how I actually achieved this effect was, there's a really cool plugin that I recommend. It's called Easy Keys. I'll go ahead and show you guys. So with Easy Keys, it allows you to either build your own MIDI or your own chord progressions. There's little blocks here, and you can make your own little chord progression. So I can turn this C into like a G minor, this into a B minor, different chord progressions like that. And then there's this little use browser MIDI option, and then you can convert it to something different. But how I'll actually use it is by importing MIDI that I'm already using in my own song. So for example, I'll go to this ARP, and then I will export this MIDI. I'll go to export as MIDI, save it somewhere on my computer, come to Easy Keys, hit this song track, import MIDI file, import that MIDI. So I'll show you. Just pick a random one. So once I have the MIDI, like I said, I'll hit this use browser MIDI, pick one of the libraries. So they have different libraries that you can choose from based on genre. So there's like ballads, gospel, hip hop, and R&B. These are the ones that I have. They actually have, I think it's like over 30 or over 60 different packs that you can add on to Easy Keys. But I'll choose whichever pack I want to play around in. Pick the swing, so usually I'll do 4/4, or sometimes I'll do swing 4/4, and then I'll just kind of browse around until I find something I like. So basically it will turn that MIDI into something different. It'll sound a little fancier. Once I find a chord progression that I like, I'll export it, then import it to the sound I like, and that's how you get that kind of complex sounding chord progression I have here at the end. And I thought this was just a nice little outro, kind of spice up the track, give it a totally different feel than the rest of the track. So overall, I hope you guys learned something in this video. Takeaways when it comes to producing R&B would be your sound selection, I would say, are number one. So make sure you either have the right type of VSTs or choosing sounds that represent the genre that you're trying to produce. So if you want to make more of a contemporary style R&B, make sure you're finding drums and sounds that represent that. So no trap snares and things like that, unless that's the type of music you're trying to produce. So after sound selection, I would say your arrangement is super important. So knowing when to take away sounds, add sounds, bring them back in, making sure that your verses have different switch ups in them, different transitional effects being played both throughout your verses and as well as when you're transitioning from verse to hook. So those are some things to keep in mind. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what you think, and I will see you guys in the next video.
Young and driven.